Welcome to Singled Out, the 9th Best Guild Ball podcast. Please stand by.
Hello, Andrew here. This will be the last you hear of me for this episode. This is an episode that was originally on the Singled Out bonus time feed and is now free for everyone to listen to. This is where Steve Cole talks to the Langtons about the Union in the first part of our podcast, where we have 30 minutes on each guild. Enjoy!
Dog goes woof, cat goes meow, bird goes tweet, and mouse goes squeak. Cow goes moo, frog goes croak, and the elephant goes toot. Ducks say quack, and fish go blub, and the seal goes ow, ow, ow. But there's one sound that no one knows. What does the fox say?
So, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it may be that you're listening to this. This is the first recording of, I'm not sure if it'll be the first episode to come out, of a series we're doing, basically Guilds in 30 minutes, where Steve Cole, I should probably say my name as one of the hosts, talk to other members of the Guild Ball community about how to play certain guilds. And today we're going to talk about the Union Guild, and I am cordially joined by everyone's favourite banter merchant, Francois Langton, otherwise known as General Franco Bantz. How are you, Francois?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you, and good afternoon to everyone.
So I understand that this podcast has created somewhat of a reputational issue for you overseas. Is that right? After your last appearance,
it's not actually been so bad for me. It's Valerian who's really suffered.
I mean, that seems reasonable.
Because your banter thing hasn't stuck so much because it doesn't seem to translate so well.
It's a shame. Maybe we should start calling you like Franco Bro or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. But it's fine because once people meet me, they'll realise it's entirely undeserved. So,
I guess
as the least banter person ever.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to force a nickname that will upset you, whereas Valerian's is more of an act of just articulation of his playstyle, right?
Yep.
So we're going to talk about Union, who are obviously one of the most popular guilds historically in Guild Ball, and about how they play. But so we're not. I think the first thing to say is if you're looking for like a card read or something like that, this podcast won't be that. What we're going to talk about, in a nutshell, is the three captains, because obviously the captains affect the play style of the guild far more than any other model, the general way in which they play, and some of the things they can do and some of the things that they can't do. I think that's right to say. So let's start with the three captains. I think we'll start with the newest one, because I think the captains, I'd be interested in your view on this, Francois, the captains for Union sort of actually segment out quite cleanly. You basically have one captain who you kick with, and two captains. These are broad brush rules, and two captains who like to receive. So the captain who likes to kick is Veteran Greed.
Yep. So brand new captain. His gimmick, I guess, is that he doesn't get a mascot, but he gets to. Someone in his team gets to take two activations every turn. So you put only 5 models on the pitch. But a double activation from someone, which is a nice mobility buff. And, the reason he's quite good for kicking is because of that. ability. So you can effectively have 2 models in a threatening position turn 1 and go from there. Union have got a bunch of good squaddies, so taking 2 activations, even without extra influence, is always handy.
He gives you a lot of movement and mobility, doesn't he? That's I think the big thing Vet Greed brings to a Union team is just, you have the out of sequence movement of the double activation, and then he gives out additional movement buffs. So he's a really good mobile captain. He's probably the tankiest Union captain, I think. In terms of it,
guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's him or Blackheart probably, just because Rage, 4-1, 1-inch reach. The other 2 captains both got 2-inch reach and a relevant counter attack, which Rage doesn't really have.
Yeah.
But yeah, the speed buffs, you can have 4 extra inches of movement on someone with Grace as well, and a 2-inch push on your models. So
it's pretty good.
They can go a long way.
And I guess the thing he does give you is he gives you a very powerful turn 1, because you're able to engage with multiple models. Almost certainly you can spend, 7 or 8 influence with models engaging, hitting an enemy on turn 1, which is actually quite rare in Guild Ball still, because often you're having to charge or you're having to use, buy dodges with models and things like that. So he gives you a very powerful kick on turn 1. He's probably the least... His impact can tail off a bit over the rest of the game. So I think if you want to really get a sort of short, sharp shock into your opponents and have a really good kind of early turns, he's great. Once the lines meet, he's a little less effective than some of the other Union captains, I'd say.
I think he personally is, yes. Depending on what team you're playing into, I guess it is really.
Yeah.
If it's a team that wants to spread out against you, then he's not a terrible choice, because he can get your models where they need to be to have an impact, even after turn 1. He personally doesn't necessarily do so much, and his damage output's okay. He does have the extra damage and attack buff on the charge, so he can do damage. He's got a knockdown. He's got some pushes. But you're not expecting him to have a massive turn in the way.
Sometimes he'll do something cool for you. Yeah. Should we move on to talk about Rage a bit then? Because Rage is probably the other really common Union captain. And whereas you usually you want to kick with Veteran Greed, normally you want to receive with Veteran Rage. And he is just... Basically, Veteran Rage gives you damage, and really hard to deny damage as well.
Yep. That's basically everything is about the damage and about making your players do more damage, which is great. You want the ball so your opponent can't use it and can't score, and then you go and hit people and hit them very well.
He's one of the killies, and also he's one of the few models, I guess, in the game that essentially, I think, is it called arc noding in some other war games? Like, he can make attacks through other models. Like, so he's also not you're able to spend a lot of influence through models that you want to do, and his attack, he's very hard to invalidate, I think.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Either he goes in, puts a load of damage in, or if you can set it up for one of the other models who's got one of the AoE attacks like Fangtooth or Gutter, you can then put extra influence through them. So they can conceivably make up to 4 extra attacks, which is super useful in the right circumstance, especially if you've got one of his buffs up.
It's pretty good. If you want to scrum, I think if you're a player and you want to scrum and you want to fight and you want to punch things, like Vet Rage is the go-to person.
Oh, for sure, in Union.
Yeah, almost in any team. He's a bit squishy though, isn't he? He is a bit squishy.
He's not super tough. I mean, Rising Anger, it's something, but it doesn't really... If people are going to attack him, they're going to attack him regardless.
Yeah.
And Union generally are generating so much momentum anyway that giving them 2 more doesn't tend to make a lot of difference.
Yeah, it's almost like a free heal for him or something like that, isn't it?
He's definitely killable.
Yeah, and being 1-inch reach, even though he's got quick time and things like that, like, because he's furious, you can invalidate. He's invalidatable because you don't want to get locked down with him. You don't want to be engaged at 2 inches by like Tapper or something like that. So you have to be. He's not like you can't just throw him in and expect him to sort of wade his way through teams. You have to be a bit careful with him. But then he can make attacks while he can almost be like a sort of Skaven warlord if you want. He can make attacks while sitting behind your entire team.
Yep. And that's one of the most useful things you can do with him is put attacks through other models. Especially, I guess you often get models that can push around. Just using someone like Benediction to position the model you actually want to attack, so that Rage can use his Furious, or as I said, the AOE attacks, and you can keep him fairly safe if you need to.
If you're really worried about it, but usually you can, sort of YOLO him into something, and you probably will kill it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best defense is offense, isn't it?
yeah, indeed.
If something's worrying you, you charge it and kill it.
And then the third captain is probably more of a receive captain. He's more.
I don't know.
He loves having the ball. He does love having the ball.
Certainly, before Greed came out, you would generally kick with Blackheart.
Yeah.
Although that is as much as anything that you tend to not want to kick with Rage so much. Blackheart is a mix of stuff. I think it's fair to say if you looking at him. He's got a bit of everything, so he's reasonably tough. He's got a good counter attack. He's got Shadow Light to escape. He's got a very good legendary, and then his character plays are a mix of things. Without going too deep into the card, he's got one buff, one debuff, and one football-related thing. So he's not quite as focused as the other two captains, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, he's very generalist, isn't he? And a lot of bits of Guild Ball does reward specialism over generalism. Like to a certain extent. So he can do a lot of everything, and he's very good he's very mobile if you can connect with the opposition team or if you have the ball.
Yeah.
If you don't, he's quite slow, and he's a bit more vulnerable to being sort of hit by things like blind and stuff like that. But he can be really, he can really get about, and he can be very good into sort of football teams because he's very good at getting 6-point activations, and especially if he's hitting slightly squishier models. And you can give him tooled up, you can get access to that, and if you can ever get his butchery damage buff off, he can do a lot, but he has to climb his playbook quite a lot. But he almost, though, is probably, in my mind, the most fun Union captain. He's swingier because you're basically often trying to hit your like third or fourth column with him. But
in an ideal world, you're hitting the top of his playbook on the charge, and then it's kind of money. But that's usually easier said than done.
Yeah, but he's great at like ping-ponging off stuff, so you can do some really crazy goal runs with him. You can get into and that is a thing for Union because they're not blessed with a surfeit of like dodge heavy, high mobility sort of models. They've got some, but they're not like they don't have a lot of that sort of mobility jank. They have definitely got mobility jank, but they don't have the just hitting playbook dodges and then sort of and also his kick stat is decent, and Union aren't blessed with great kick stats as a general rule.
No. I mean, he is a lot of fun, and if you want to go down the more football orientated route, I think he is the captain to go for.
Yeah.
As you said, the mobility when he bounces off people, you can score from a surprisingly far distance.
And he's probably the hardest captain he's the hardest Union captain to kill, probably because he has Shadow-like and he has a lot of early low dodges, so he's nearly impossible. If you don't kill him and he gets to activate, he's just going to run away from you pretty easily.
Yes.
And be somewhere where you don't want him. So that's the sort of captains, and I guess the sort of the summary is probably Vet Rage Punch stuff, Blackheart sort of bit more football, and sort of Vet Greed is probably more about a sort of turn one alpha strike and lots of mobility.
Yeah.
So what sort of tools? So we're not going to go into we'll talk a bit about the individual models, but like obviously a lot of what you do depends on the team selection that you make or the captain that you choose. But what sort of tools what do Union have and what do they not have as a team?
I guess the first thing they have is lots of damage.
Yeah.
Probably at least half of their squaddies are just pure output models. Some of the best in the game, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got Minx, you've got Fangtooth, you've got Gutter, Decimate. Yeah.
And then you've got
Rage.
a nice mix of support models as well and batteries. So Benediction, Grace, Hemlock, models that can do a lot with not much influence, or if any. So generally, I guess you look to take a couple of output models and a couple of support models, depending on what you're trying to do. So Rage and Greed, you're probably shading more towards damage. Although I guess Mist gets the occasional look in Greed, because if you actually want to try and score a goal turn one on the kick.
Yeah, Mist is. I think that's fair to say that you what you don't have is a lot of you don't have any ranged ball retrieval, and you don't have a lot of ball pressure outside of taking Mist. And Mist is what you also tend to have is a lot of influence hungry models. So you do have a couple of really good batteries in there, particularly sort of Grace and Benediction, but you don't have a lot of models that are just happy sort of to influence here and there doing stuff. Like you tend to want to spend a lot of the influence that you have, and you definitely don't have. You can often situationally get the ball because you have models with tackles and they are quite mobile, but you don't have a high level of concerted ball pressure unless you take Mist.
I mean, yeah, you're not generally chasing it in terms of you just want to get the ball and you'll use 2 or 3 models to pressure it. It's, as you say, an opportunistic thing. And I would go so far as to say you're probably looking to get 1 goal with at least 2 out of 3 captains just to finish the game, or to take it to 8 or 10 points. But you're not going in aiming to score probably not even 2 goals, certainly not 3, just because you're then not leveraging the strength of the guild.
Because you have a lot of momentum. Yeah, because you get a lot of momentous damage, a lot of momentum generation. I guess what they're not as well. You've got some tough models, but they're not as tough as some pure fighting guilds. So say like Brewers, they don't have the same. You don't have a lot of tough hide. You don't have a lot of health. You have some durable models, and you have some defensive tech like Benediction and Fangtooth have it, but you don't have. Is there even a tough hide model in guild? Avarice maybe.
Yeah, Avarice has got it.
But you do, yeah.
but no one's seen Avarice on the pitch for a little while.
Yeah, he's a bit slow. So I think you don't. Yeah, so you don't have that. But they're
all pretty average. Just having a quick flick through. I mean, Fangtooth has resilience and a lot of wounds, but the rest of them are pretty much standard. 4-1, 14 health, 5-0, 12 health.
Yeah.
Which is, pretty much the same as bang on average for the guilds. So you're not super squishy, but there's nothing that isn't. There's very few models that aren't relatively killable.
Yeah.
So your defense certainly lies in killing stuff before it kills you, rather than outlasting your opponent.
Which it turns out that you are very, very good at. So
it's okay then.
Yeah, because it sounds like we've said that, we're like, oh, Union can't quite do this and they can't do that. They are really good at killing stuff. And they also have, in faction, a lot of mobility buffs. They have various damage buffs because you have access to Tooled Up and you have access to Bloody Coin and you have access to Butchery. And then you've got some you've got things like Snared in Guild, and Fangtooth can increase his own damage output, so on. But you also actually have a lot of movement buffs, and that you've got Greed's buffs, you've got Mark Target, you've got Quick Foot from Grace, and you've got the free pass aura from Benediction, which is usually used to get a free dodge. So you do have big threat ranges, even if they are quite linear.
Yep, and you're almost always using them for just to get your models into the opponent, but it means your opponent has to kind of respect that threat and can't just sit, 9 inches away from Rage. You have to be aware that he's probably coming for you anyway.
Yeah. So what are you looking to do when you sort of pick a Union 6? You're sort of looking for
Who can punch stuff in the face the most?
yeah
Generally,
yeah
like I said, it's at least 2 output models, at least 1 model that doesn't need influence, or maybe 1 influence, and generally also a model that won't die too quickly. Especially in Rage, where you want to set up the scrum in the middle and just fight everything. You need a model that isn't going to just fold quickly. So generally Benediction or Fangtooth, big health pools, resilience on Fangtooth, lots of armor on Benediction.
You've got the Benediction healing aura as well, which helps with those sort of generally low health pools as well.
Yep.
Or the sort of average health pools, I guess.
Yeah, and then but there's not a lot of squaddies in there that you wouldn't consider.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't there's not. They don't really have. I mean, we said like Avarice and Great, but they don't have any particularly bad players. I mean, they have in I think we talked about captains. It's worth at the time of recording talking about Minx as well, because they probably have. They're one of the 2 strongest squaddies in the game in terms of raw damage output. You and I differ on who is number one.
Actually the best, yeah.
But,
whether it's Minx or Cast, but
Minx is very, very powerful, and so you're usually taking her because she does damage and debuffs. She has a really tremendously good playbook. She works really well as a setup piece. She works really well as an outright damage piece.
I mean, the playbook is so good because it scales really well. So if you can get crowd outs, tack buffs, all of which are kind of fairly readily available in Union, it just gets better and better.
Yeah, and I think also the putting out, she's the only model in the guild that puts out snared, and that is, I think, the only, other than knockdown, the only debuff they've got that carries over turns. So she's actually very good at going in late and then setting up for, say, Vet Rage or Greed or someone else to go early, and then so you can sort of use her at the end of. She's like gives you a good sort of completer finisher sort of spell because she sets things up well. So you quite often see her leave a model on very low health, and then sort of Vet Rage will either go into them or Greed will go into them, finish the model off, maybe score a goal as well, or maybe make some more attacks through Minx, because she's also got she has damage and dodges, so she's got good repositions as she hits stuff as well. And you've got and the other thing I guess they do have in a big way as a guild, which you talked about before, is they do have like AoE character plays that cause a lot of damage that are hit off the playbook in both Fangtooth and Gutter.
Yep, and Rage especially really enables that with the play with his heroic and legendary for tack buff. I guess Greed does too with his tack buff from shelling out, and models like Benediction's ability to push models around to set up crowd out so you can reliably hit things. I had Gutter kill 3 models in 1 activation.
Yeah.
Before.
It's not.
Someone else do that to me. That is.
Yeah, and I've managed to kill 3 models with Fangtooth before, and I guess the thing you have to be aware of as a player is both Gutter and Fangtooth will damage your own players.
Yes.
So that you can't just build a big scrum and then say take hundreds of unmaskings with Fangtooth, because you can, but you'd be risking doing damage to your own players. And sometimes you want to do that. Like I've definitely had Fangtooth. I've hit unmasking with Fangtooth to kill Vet Rage when he's been in danger of getting put in jail and stuff like that. So there's some corner case uses of it, but 9 times out of 10, you don't want to hit your own models with these plays.
You can quickly take your own models down to fairly low health.
Yeah. And so what sort of, like in terms of sort of game strategy, like what are you looking for with? And I know it depends on the captains, but should we maybe talk about just in terms of those 3 captain teams? So you're taking a Vet Greed team. Is there any difference in squaddies you're looking into? I mean, the obvious big one is Blackheart and Vet Greed can take all Rage.
It's I guess I would say Rage is pretty close to an auto take for me.
Yeah.
In Blackheart or Greed. He's super influence efficient. He's got tooled up. Furious. I mean, what's not to like?
Yeah,
Again, a load of damage output for not much influence. So him and Minx, I would probably take in Blackheart and Greed all the time
yeah.
and that gives you two output models.
One of whom is extraordinarily efficient, and especially if you can get the double jog thing with Rage, because he basically just furious charged the first one, so he goes quite a long way.
Well, if people are in what is not that difficult a situation to set up, get double furious out of Rage.
Yeah,
which is kind of fun.
It's kind of efficient, and I'm probably afraid tooled up as well. And then and I guess you probably do see Mist more with Blackheart and Greed, because you sometimes want ball retrieval or ball pressure, and particularly like if you're kicking into teams that are very good with the ball but don't have a lot of close control. So you have to be a bit careful with Mist, because if you're playing into Engineers, big whoop, like you can get to where the ball is, but you're not getting it off anyone. Whereas like into say Alchemists or some Fish builds,
even Fish, I mean, if it's not like full Corsair,
yeah,
bubble of death, I mean, because the Shark team or UK probably want to move the ball around, so you can hopefully pick the moment when it's not stuck on Knuckles or Tentacles, I guess. Although Tentacles is at least a bit easier to get it back from.
Yeah, you're not getting sort of knocked down for your troubles like as you are with Knuckles.
Yeah, so it's as a kicking play, I thought it's pretty solid. I don't know I'll take Mist that often receiving.
No, I don't think hugely.
Because you've got players, if you're receiving and you need to score a goal, you've got other players who can go almost as far.
Yeah, Grace is very good for that, because she also is giving. I mean, Grace seems very good to me in Union anyway, because she's influence efficient. She gives you like a free quick foot or a free heal. So if you're fighting that scrum and you've got Benediction and Grace, and you can potentially heal 5 influence a turn when you're not before you spend momentum. A team with them in it, and I have done that. You can heal a model 13 health in a turn. Which is
not a lot of teams going through that in a hurry.
No, so when you're saying that, 4-1 Minx is kind of squishy, 4-1 Minx, but if you can actually heal 13 of her 4, basically if you don't kill her, you can heal her back up to full health. Should you want to. So I think there's that balance, and I guess in terms of what are you trying to set up in the board with? Because I think it's fair to say Vet Rage is the more common Union captain, right? He's the go-to choice for me. He is anyway.
Yeah, I think you just want to set up a big fight in the middle generally. Yeah. I guess slightly on your side, just because of the thing of if players get killed and they're coming back, if it's on your side of the pitch, your guys get back in the fight faster. But again, that's a kind of matchup dependent thing. Because if you're playing against a football team, they're not killing you, and you don't want to be
near the goal,
up next to your goal. Yeah. So it's generally keep the ball safe against football and get in a big fight in the middle. And 9 times out of 10, Rage is going to win that fight.
Yeah, and I think I guess one of the things to watch out for in that as well is that some of your models get back into the game very, very quickly. Like Minx and Decimate, if they get taken out, will be back in play doing stuff the next turn. But actually, like Fangers and Benediction can be a long way back into the fight for them. So so they can have a bit of a slow old time getting back in there. So I think you just, in terms of like your board positioning, what you want to be aware of is if you think, I'm probably going to lose a couple of players in this scrum, like while the Union scrum is very good, it can occasionally disintegrate a bit as you come forward. So it's just about, how are you sort of planning on playing that, and do you want to swing it to one side of the pitch or that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's managing it where you want it, which I guess you just need to have a model who you can take being hit a few times, so you can start that fight. And also against some teams, you still need to be able, even if they're looking to fight as well, you still need to be able to protect the ball.
Yeah.
Because there are teams who again can take an opportunistic goal if you leave the ball in a vulnerable place.
you've got decent options for holding the ball, but not amazing, do you? Like it's like Benediction's pretty good, Fangtooth is pretty good, and Grace plus distance is pretty good.
Mm.
And I think I guess the thing I've generally found with them, I don't know about you, is that it's not about dumping the ball on a player and sort of bunkering away that play. It's almost about moving the ball to where the pressure is not, or like, immediately killing the pressure in one part of the pitch and shifting the ball across there, which is why Grace can be very useful because she's fast and she's got a 3-8 kick.
Yeah, generally you actually kind of want to use the ball in a rage team.
Yeah.
You're not. It's not one of the teams where you, as you said, you don't just dump it in a corner somewhere. Usually, because the mobility extension is so big with the free pass and conceivably Harry for free dodges and all this sort of thing.
Yeah. And then very quickly, should we just touch on mascots? Is probably the last bit we haven't talked about. Coin is really good. The pig is
Strongbox, who's a tortoise, not a pig.
Tortoise. I'm getting the mixed up.
You don't even know what team we were talking about now.
I mean, I think I've pretty clearly shown which mascot I use. I don't even own Strongbox. I mean, I own him on BetGreed, but I don't actually own a Strongbox model.
Yeah, I think Coin's a much better all-round mascot, and again brings that efficiency.
Yeah.
With bag of coffers for the extra influence and free bonus time, but Strongbox because he brings chilling out for another attack buff, and also knockdown on one. Admittedly, only with attack 2, but it's a relevant parting blow.
Yeah,
which is, I guess, the big thing. And he's, 10 wounds, tough hide, which is quite a lot on a mascot.
It's not. Strongbox doesn't give you up. Both of them are quite hard to kill, I think. But Box definitely doesn't give you up points easily. But is super slow. That's the tricky bit. Is getting Strongbox into a position where they are relevant. Whether as Coin just going around giving free bonus time blind to Hemlock, or free bonus time for if you need to make that pass or an axe throw or whatever is pretty good.
Yeah, which is why I think Coin is, I guess, the default pick.
Yeah.
But not in the other mascot's rubbish kind of way, which you get in some guilds.
Yeah, Coin's a very good mascot that's very easy to use, and Strongbox is a good mascot that's quite hard to use.
Yeah, just because of the speed and getting in position.
But I've definitely seen people like Dan Adams use them with some really effective sort of results. So and I think that's a general trend with Union, isn't it? Is you're not really wrong for taking anything in it.
Nope. I mean, Strongbox, if again going back to the positioning of the fight and whatnot, if you're fighting in your own half back towards your goal, it's fine because it doesn't take that much to get Strongbox in a good position.
Yeah.
If you're needing to go forwards more, a 3-inch jog doesn't get you very far. And even sprinting 5 inches, that's an influence wasted to still not get you very far.
Yeah, and it's it's an aura you're trying to use. That's okay. So I guess that is sort of Union in a nutshell. Is they're pretty flexible. They've got loads of good squaddies. They're very fighty, and they generate a lot of momentum. I don't know if there's anything. Do you think they're fun? Do you like playing Union? Because you play a lot of guilds.
I enjoyed them. I mean, we both had a kind of run with them at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And it was fun. And I mean, the only reason I put them down was to swap to another guild rather than because I wasn't enjoying them anymore. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if you just want to fight people, they're a lot of fun. And lots of squaddies that you can use. You don't have to stick with us. There's no fixed 6 in them. There's a couple of models you take more often than not.
Yeah.
But I would say the only squaddies that you probably never see at the moment is Avarice and Greed. I've even seen people take Snakeskin.
Yeah, and Snakeskin, we talked about defending the ball, is one of the models that is good at defending the ball against ranged ball retrieval, that sort of thing. I wouldn't disagree. Avarice and Greed are the only ones you see, which I think we should just say is because they are very slow and very influence hungry. Yeah,
so basically you just have to dump influence into them at the right time, assuming they've made it to where you need them to be. And at that point, you might as well put it into one of the other very good squaddies that Union have, who don't need so much kind of positional setup.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Because actually, in terms of what they do, once they get in, they're really good.
Yeah. They'll smash stuff up.
But if you can't get them into the position, it doesn't matter how good they are.
So I think that's Union in 30 minutes. Well, let us know, listener, whether you think anything of that podcast, what you think about it. Tell us that we're wrong. We will put some Patreon content up in a little bit for those that want, the high level strategy or the sort of the dirtiest tricks we have available with those teams. We'll be putting up in the Patreon content at some point soon. But we're going to be doing these for every guild, hopefully. And let us know what you think. Thanks very much, Franco.
No worries, man.